Want of food and want of shelter, thirsty hills and barren lands. We are trusting in the Lord, and according to His word, we will understand it better by and by. By and by, when the morning comes, when the saints of God are gathered home, we'll tell the story of how we'll overcome, for we'll understand it better by and by. Temptations, hidden snares, often take us unawares, and our hearts are made to bleed for many thoughtless word or deed. And we wonder why the test when we try to do our best, but we'll understand it better by and by. Oh, by and by, when the morning comes, when the saints of God are gathered home, we'll tell the stories of how we'll overcome, for we'll understand it better by and by.
Welcome to Portage United Church of Christ. We're glad that you've decided to join us today for this online service. My name is Mac Kneebone. I'm the associate pastor here at PUCC. This Eastertide, our theme is Draw the Circle Wide. And with that, we want you to know that our motto here at the UCC is also, whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And that means that here in this virtual space, we want to cultivate a wide and inclusive welcome. We also want to cultivate that same welcome here in the building and invite you here on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock for service here if you would like to come. But also, we want you to know how grateful we are that you've decided to help us grow this online space as well. So, as we begin our service, take a deep breath and let us join ourselves together, heart and mind, soul and body. Even though we're distant from each other geographically, we don't see each other in the room, we still can see each other in our spirits. So let us co-create this sacred and holy time, one with another, as we start our service today. Today's topic in our theme of Draw the Circle Wide is ripples of hospitality. Paul's openness to spreading the gospel of Jesus among Jews and Gentiles alike is probably one of the most important catalysts in the spread of Christianity and the growth of the early church. Paul was not only a Jew, but also inherited Roman citizenship from his father. He adopted his Roman name, Paul, for his writing and his ministry to the Gentiles, which no doubt helped to put them at ease as he preached the liberating word of Jesus' grace available to all. So the question that we can ask ourselves when we're thinking about these ripples of hospitalities is, are we willing to open ourselves to others for the sake of embodying a gracious and hospitable presence to all?
This new day is fresh with possibilities to encounter the living Christ. With bright eyes, let us search. This day is fresh with possibilities to respond to the living Christ. With solid devotion, let us follow. This new day is fresh with possibilities to serve the living Christ. With humble intentions, let us act. This new day is fresh with possibilities to praise the living Christ. With strong voices, let us sing.
As the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs after you. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone will my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You're my friend, and you are my brother, even though you are a king. I love you more than any other, so much more than anything. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone will my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. I want you more than gold or silver, only you can satisfy. You alone are the real joy giver, and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone will my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone will my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you.
The news of your resurrection created ripples that started with the core group of disciples and continued to widen as ripples do. For some, it was an unwanted disruption. For others, those yearning for good news, it was a time of refreshing. New life was breathed into the community of believers and seekers. They grew bold in their proclamations about the abundant life, forgiveness, and grace. We gather today in their legacy. Help us turn those ripples into waves which invite and celebrate all who long to splash in the waters of our community. Bless these waves with the healing powers of renewal, so that everyone we encounter feels the droplets of energizing abundant life. Strengthen and inspire us today, so that we are all filled and overflowing like a fountain, splashing with joy and peace on any and all who are looking for refreshment.
Our reading today is from Romans, the letter that Paul wrote to the people in Rome. We're reading chapter 1, verses 7 through 15. It says this: "To all God's beloved in Rome who are called to be saints, grace to you, and peace from our divine parent and the Messiah, Jesus Christ. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, because your faith is proclaimed throughout the world. For God, whom I serve with my spirit by announcing the gospel of his Son, is my witness that without ceasing I remember you always in my prayers, asking that by God's will I may somehow at last succeed in coming to you. For I am longing to see you, so that I may share with you some spiritual gift to strengthen you. Or rather, so that we may be mutually encouraged by one another's faith, both yours and mine. I want you to know, my siblings, that I have often intended to come to you, but thus far have been prevented, in order that I may reap some harvest among you, as I have among the other Gentiles. I have a responsibility to Greeks and to those who don't speak Greek, both to the wise and to the foolish. Hence my eagerness to proclaim the gospel to you also who are in Rome." May God add a blessing to this reading. Paul had a desire. Paul had a passion. He wanted to spread the good news of grace, of mercy, of love that he had received from God. He felt like he had this special message that everybody would benefit from. Knowing that the message of Jesus' ministry was being spread among his Jewish siblings, he decided it was his call to go to other groups of people, go to other places, other countries. And because he had this dual citizenship, it seemed natural that among the other places that he would go to Rome. He wanted people to be as excited as he was. So his methods were to make his teachings as accessible as possible. He used his Roman name, Paul. He noticed his surroundings and made as much relevance as he could to the locals that he encountered. We see that in story after story. He made himself as hospitable as he knew how to be to those around him, so that they would listen to him without feeling confronted or corrected. That wasn't his goal. He wanted them instead to be drawn by curiosity, to be drawn by his enthusiasm. So as I was looking up images for hospitality for the service today, the things that came up for me were images of hotels and restaurants. I can't tell you how discouraging that was at first. Here I was facing the hospitality industry. I wanted hospitality. What do? Well, okay, so I searched for words like welcome, generous. Once upon a time, the whole idea of hospitality was to take someone in, to make room for them, to give them a room, to offer them a safe haven. It's where we get the word hospitals, where the sick and the injured are offered a room, a place, so that they can get better. It's where we get the word hostels, not hostel, but hostel, where the weary traveler can get rest. Now hospitality is commodified. With our topic of ripples of hospitality, however, I want you to know I'm not thinking about that cluster of hotels and restaurants at the end of many exits of the freeway. It's not where I'm going. The kind of hospitality that I'm thinking about is different, not the kind that's dependent on a person's ability to pay for a certain level of accommodations and service. With the more money you have, the more you get. This is as opposed to real hospitality, which is a generous offering of someone's abundance. Or maybe not even abundance. Maybe it's a generous offering of just some small surplus that you might have. You're somewhere and people are writing things down and someone says, I don't have a pen, and you have an extra. Or you're done with yours and you offer them theirs. It doesn't have to be, well, I have a villa in France if you'd like to go. But if you do, when Paul was going from place to place, sharing his version of the good news, he was offering a kind of hospitality in the way that he did it. A hospitality of mind and thought, even a hospitality of spirit, of well-being. At the same time, he counted on others being hospitable to him in much more tangible ways. He mentions this frequently in his writings, either thanking a community for taking him in, or thanking folks for taking care of him. He was always looking for a place to stay, food to eat. In the book of Acts, chapter 18, it says that Paul became acquainted with a couple named Priscilla and Aquila. He stayed with them because they were of the same trade as him. Did you know that Paul had a trade? Jesus was a carpenter, and Paul, do you know what Paul was? A tent maker. Paul was a tent maker. So he found some tent makers that were of his same faith, and he says, so, can I stay with you and can I have a job? And they said, okay. They ended up being very important to him in his ministry and personally. They're mentioned in several of his other letters. True hospitality can make friendships. They can make deep connections. It's in a surprising way. All I did was this little thing for you. But then I found out a little bit more about you and you about me, and the next thing you know, we're friends. Or friendly, at the very least. Sometimes it can make an impression that's hidden, and it changes a perspective, opens up a path that is life-giving. Those are the kinds of ripples we want to make. Think about a time or two when someone was hospitable to you in some way that allowed you to, I don't know, relax, to feel free, to be safe, to be empowered. Think about that. It might be that they opened up a space for you to speak your heart. Maybe you were invited into a conversation that you never thought you'd be allowed into. I know that's happened to me, especially at the beginning of my work at the national level in the United Church of Christ. I never got paid for doing that, but in my volunteering, where I was invited to a table. Hey, you know, Mac, we'd like to hear what you have to say about that. You would? You want my perspective? Oh, okay. Possibly you were given a safe haven, physically protected, sheltered. What did it feel like? Did you breathe easier? Did you get excited about possibilities? Were you relieved? Happy? What does hospitality feel like? What does it mean to open up a space for someone else? The other Sunday, when Mary Kay was talking about widening the circle, she suggested, well, maybe there's not a circle at all. I don't know if you remember that, but that made an impression on me. Sometimes it's helpful to think in terms of a shape or an organization, but does it have to really exist? Is the function of the idea of it enough to help us see ourselves and our location so that we can band together in friendship, work, and service, so that we can move aside and make room for others? It got me thinking about the first chapter of the Tao Te Ching, which talks about it in a wider way. The first two stanzas, the way they're translated, first by Stephen Mitchell, it says this: the Tao can be told, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. And Ursula Le Guin translated them this way: the way you can go isn't the real way. The name you can say isn't the real name. Heaven and earth begin in the unnamed. Name is the mother of the 10,000 things. So what if the practice of hospitality helps us to both see the circle that we create as a community and then helps us widen it? To continually create more room so that there isn't an inside and there isn't an outside. It's more of a constant shifting of the waves, which makes an arc, which is always flowing, always in motion. It's not a set shape. Like water makes waves, we are fluid in our shape, always able to take more in, able to let go when necessary. This fluidity gives us energy rather than a stagnant shape would. Hospitality is motion. Hospitality is energy itself. It is taking and giving, a constant, the practice space, like waves going across the water. The practice of creating and recreating a widening circle along with the practice of hospitality is eternal. The naming of these things is a convenient way to talk about them. But the naming isn't the thing itself. Experience, which seems fleeting because we live moment by moment, is more real, more essential, and eternal than the words we use to define it. Think again about that experience you had of receiving hospitality, how it moved you, how it shifted your life, where the fluidity was. And now think about trying to tell that story. There's only so much you can say to really convey what's there before you start to feel the limitations of the telling itself. Our experiences ripple forward in our lives, sometimes in ways we don't even know. That's what we share together. It's what we're called to be the motion and the fluidity which opens space, which embraces, offers safe haven, support, rest for the weary, and energizes the next wave, the next widening. These are types of hospitality based on our faith and our calling to live our faith every single day. May it ripple forth from here in waves of grace. And now, my friends, it is time for me to talk about another kind of hospitality or of generosity, and that is our offering. On the first Sunday of the month, we take an offering, passing the plate, giving you an opportunity to give digitally using the QR code or to give actual money check kind of thing as the plate is passed around. We always welcome and encourage your contributions to the general fund on these days, but we also encourage you to give to our Love Fund. Now, this Love Fund is the one that we use to help families in need that we find out about who are in crisis. Additionally, we'll be sending, so this is a Love Fund envelope. Somewhere there's a Strengthen the Church envelope. Those are both Love Fund. But there's Strengthen the Church envelopes out there. Also, that's one of our 5 for 5 UCC offerings. And so, with all of that, and with the ushers set to take your offerings, peace.
Holy love, sometimes it feels like we are just going around and around. We long for progress in the world and in our lives. Help us perceive that instead of walking the same path over and over, our lives and those of the generations past are creating an ever-expanding spiral. Teach us to discern the gentle sway of your Spirit and the long arc of justice that you help us create. Still, it feels like such little growth over so long a time. We grow righteously impatient. There are too many who are obsessed with power and ruthlessness in their greed. It's hard to push against it all. Give us the strength we need to continue going around and around, creating circles of community and spirals of hope. Expand the rippling effect of your grace and mercy through the way we express our faith. Your loving presence crosses our boundaries seamlessly because they aren't your boundaries. Show us how to live our lives faithfully by speaking out and taking action. We widen our circle so that no one is in the center, but we are all equally valued, integrated, and loved.
And now it's time to go from this moment to whatever it is that you have next. May you feel the ripples of God's hospitality well up within you and swirl all around you. And may that sense of this divine hospitality strengthen you for your own work, for your own generosity and expanded nature, so that your hospitality becomes a rippling wave force in the world, and that others get splashed by it, and that we become some kind of a dynamic of hospitality, this wave that crests and falls and crests again, so that our community is widened, our circle is widened, all are welcomed, and everyone is celebrated. Go forth, my friends, in peace and as peacemakers.
For everyone born a place at the table, for everyone born clean water and bread, a shelter, a space, a safe place for growing, for everyone born a star overhead, and God will be light when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For young and for old, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song, the hands of a child in hands that are wrinkled, for young and for old, the right to belong, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For everyone born a place at the table, to live without fear and simply to be